All right, hi guys. So my name is Jonathan Guzman, and this is my success team and how we will be walking through resistance and Mark's dilemma scenario. All right, so let's start off with Mark. Mark was doing great during his football season, sophomore year, and was on top of his academics, especially in biology. However, this current semester, it seems that biology classes have just gotten overwhelming for him and he's been doing poorly on quizzes. His parents always knew he had a drive for science, but maybe he was thinking they were wrong. With that doubt in his mind, it was also starting to affect his performance on the field. His coaches would not start him as often anymore, and even he knew his performance was not where it once was. With that being said, his scholarship was in jeopardy and it was weighing down on him. He was beginning to think he let down all the people who helped him along the way. For now, he's tutoring at the school after practice to get his grades improved. So, to start off this presentation, we're going to discuss some scenarios. I'm sorry, not scenarios, resources. And a resource that Mark could use off the bat is the Learning Resource Center that's provided by ASU. Since Mark has a biology class, there are, of course, life science tutors that could help him out with that and help him understand the material much more. The tutoring service is free of charge and is available for on campus students as well as online. If Mark needs tutoring off campus, which is convenient, the service is also available every day, other than, of course, holidays and breaks, and at various times, depending on what day it is. Another resource Mark could use is ASU Counseling. They're open 24/7 and can help him throughout the rest of his years in college if he needs the help. And this is to mostly target the self doubt that Mark was experiencing as he was having trouble with his classes. So it's one thing to fix, to improve yourself academically wise, but of course, mental health is another important topic. So, some more resources that Mark could use as well is financial aid. With Mark worried about his college finances, he can, of course, speak to a representative to help him guide through his finances and show him what other options there are to go about his finances to see if he would like to go down any of those routes. This is to address the scholarship dilemma as well that Mark was having. He was not sure if the scholarship would be held onto. So, if anything, financial help, because since everything costs money, of course, in university, would be much helpful. But speaking about the scholarship, there's also the scholarship resource on the ASU website that can help Mark navigate through his scholarship and talk to the right people who could put him on the right path to retain that scholarship. And there's also scholarships outside of the university as well if Mark wants to look into those as well. And now some off-campus resources. If Mark needed to use a crisis center or a hotline, that of course could be easily accessible to him, especially the hotline. If Mark was concerned about privacy for some reason, if that was a concern for him, then of course this resource would be convenient because that's what's best for him. Another resource that is pretty convenient for Mark to use are fitness establishments, more specifically those he is familiar with. Mark could go to a confined individual he knows him off campus and talk to them about what's going on with him. This could be the best. Now, let's talk about some strategies Mark could use to overcome this resistance that he's facing when it comes to, let's say, if there is some things that he's just not willing to do or not go forward and just push on. Here are some strategies, some tips that he could use. So, one could be alert. He can understand where he's at the moment. He can ground himself there or yourself there if you're going through this resistance dilemma, and be there fully present. Distractions can take away the focus of more important tasks at hand, and one must be aware that what they are doing and how it helps or hurts them. Another tip is having a set time and place. This would be taking an important task that needs to be done and setting a start time for it and an expected end time. But one has to make sure that once that time has been set, that you actually do start it. And there should be no excuse to have not started on that time that was set, unless of course it's something urgent, like an emergency. Um, and then another tip would be just get going. Whenever it comes down to it, one just has to hit the gas and go full speed ahead. If you feel that resistance coming on and you understand that you just need to start something, and if you do start something, understand that it just contributes lessening to that resistance as you keep telling yourself, I have to do something to get your gears going continuously. And this is all possible if there is commitment.
When clients resist doing the difficult work in therapy, how do we help them keep moving forward? Well, according to Dr. Marshall Linehan, it requires a new shift in focus, and this often starts with a simple question.
Generally, when a person really is unwilling to do the therapy itself, okay, as opposed to a person's willfulness in their everyday life. And in their everyday life, what you're going to really be focusing on is wise mind and effectiveness. Is this really effective? And then you have to get a person to do another skill called pros and cons, which is, let's look at the pros and cons of continuing to fight this particular battle. Your other strategy is to try to figure out, are you really afraid of something? Are you avoiding this for some reason? What do you think is going on? And to do more of a clinical assessment of what the controlling variable is. In other words, what is it that's pushing them to avoid doing things? And sometimes they're afraid. I've had many clients who are unwilling to experience the emotion of shame, not shame, sorry, of sadness. And they say it's too painful and they're not going to do it. Okay. The problem is that if you have a lot of sadness and grief in your life and you refuse to experience it, you can't go forward. With a person like that, you really have to more explain the value of giving up your resistance and why it's so necessary. So you've got to have a good line on. You're functioning now as a salesperson, and you're trying to sell a new behavior to the client. And to sell behavior, you've got to have a rationale for why in the world it would be effective and why it's going to help them. And then your job, it's like selling cars, except that you're selling behavior. And therefore, you have to have a good story of why it would work. You can give experiences of yourself, of how it worked with you, or how it's worked with other people that you've worked with, why this would be effective for them. And then try to get them to just try a little bit at a time. So that's often the problem, is that what you're asking of the client is painful or difficult. And unfortunately, if they're in therapy with me at least, they have lives where they have an enormous amount of pain and difficulty, but the only way out is to go through the painful things. So I tell stories about that they're like a person in hell. And I tell them, I say, in hell, it's really hot down there. So your feet are hot all the time. And the only way to get out of hell is to climb up a ladder. But the problem with the ladder is that the ladder's also hot. And so what happens to you constantly is as you're climbing the ladder, it hurts so bad you drop off and you go back to hell again. And I said, if you could be relaxed in hell, I'd say fine. I think it's a good idea. Just go on back and stay down in hell. I said, the problem is it's really hot in hell also. So the only way out of hell is to climb up the damn ladder. And the fact that it's painful is true, but there's no other way out. So that's what you've got to do. And I'm up here to help you do it. So, you have to have stories like that and different kinds of stories that mainly because most people need to be sure that you understand their excruciating pain and how difficult everything is. And the minute you start acting like things are easy to do.
All right, guys, super sorry for the long presentation, but that previous video was just to demonstrate that resistance, even in a psychotherapy setting, can get to a very terrible stage where even you think that you can't go ahead and start something. But like the presenter in the video said, like at the end of it, it's just starting. It's just going ahead and going right through it, like with the analogy of going up the ladder, but they're burning ladders. As long as you are moving forward, then you are on a pathway to doing great things. So thank you guys. Thanks for taking all this time to listen to my presentation, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks.